Today we will study about properties of materials. Have you ever wondered why a tumbler is not made with a piece of cloth? As we shown in the figure 4.2, why a tumbler is not made with a piece of cloth? The tumbler we use for drinking water is not made up of cloth. Why it is not made up of cloth? Why it is made up of glass? Recall our experiments with a piece of cloth in a chapter 3, and also keep in mind that we generally use a tumbler to keep a liquid. And where tumbler is used? Tumbler is used for keeping a liquid. For example, any juice, any type of water, and therefore would it be silly if we make a tumbler out of cloth? If we make a tumbler of cloth, then it is a silly. What would we need for a tumbler is glass, plastic, metal, or other such material that will hold water. So what are the material used to make a tumbler? Glass, plastic, metal, and other materials. These are the material used for making a tumbler. Similarly, it would not be wise to use paper-like materials for cooking utensil. So these are the properties of materials. So first question is, why we not made tumbler with a piece of cloth? So tumbler is not made up of piece of cloth. Why tumbler is not made with a piece of cloth? Because it a tumbler is used to keep a liquid, and so it cannot so cloth cannot hold liquid, just shown in the figure 4.2. So we cannot make tumbler of cloth material. So what are the material used to make tumbler? Glass, plastic, metal, or any other materials are used to hold water. Similarly, it would not be wise to use paper-like material for cooking vessels. Similarly, when we make cooking vessels, then paper-like material cannot be used for the cooking vessel. Why it is not used? Because if it burns, because paper burns if we use material for this material for cooking vessel. So first question is, why tumbler is not made with the piece of cloth? Because tumbler is not made a piece of cloth because it cannot hold water. And what are the material used for making a tumbler? Glass, plastic, metal, or other material that will hold water. And so there are two questions arises. First is, why tumbler is not made with a piece of cloth? Because answer is because tumbler would not retain water, because a tumbler will not hold water, will not hold will not hold water into the cloth. So next question is, what are the material used for making a cloth, for making a tumbler? Glass, plastic, metal, or any other materials. That these are the material used for making a tumbler. Similarly, it would not be wise to use paper-like material for cooking vessels. We choose a material to make an object depending on its properties and the purpose for the object is to be used. So what are the all properties of material that would be important for their usage? As we know, we see then that we choose a material to make an object depending on its properties and the purpose for which the object is to be used. Figure 4.2 shows the tumbler is made up of cloth and it does not retain water. So tumbler is not made with a piece of cloth. As we know, we see then we choose a material to make an object depending on its properties. So when we make any object, firstly we choose a material, and what type of material we choose? We check the property of material and then we use it for making then it is used for different purposes. So firstly we have to choose property of material. Why we choose property of material? Because every object has object has different characteristics, and because of their different characteristics, it is used for different purposes. So what are all the properties of material that would be important for their usage? Some properties are discussed here. So in this topic, we will study the properties of material. There are so many properties of material. There are so many properties of material. First is appearance. Second is luster. Third is soluble and insoluble. Fourth is it will sink or float in the water. So these are all properties of material which we'll discuss after this topic. So what are the properties of material? We cannot use, there are four question arises. First question is, why tumbler is not made with a piece of cloth? Because because tumbler is not made with a piece of cloth because it cannot hold water. So it cannot hold water, so tumbler is not made with a piece of cloth. Next question is, what are the material used for making a tumbler? Answer is glass, plastic, metal, or any other material that can hold water. These are the these are the material used for hold water. Similarly, it would not be wise to use paper-like materials for cooking vessels. We see then we choose the material to make an object depending on its property and the purpose for which the object is to be used. So firstly, we check properties of the material and then we choose it for the different purposes. So what are the properties of material? First property is appearance. First property is appearance. Material usually look different from each other and wood look very different from each other. Wood looks very different from iron. So there are so many material, just like wood, just like iron, just like copper, just like aluminium. So there are so many, so there are so many materials which looks very different from another. So wood looks very different from iron, and iron is different from copper, and copper is different from aluminium. At the same time, there may be some similarities between iron, copper, and aluminium that are not there in wood. So there can be some similarity between the properties of material. So what do you mean by appearance? This is the property of material. This is the first property of material. And what do you mean by appearance? Appearance, because every material is different from another. So they look different from each other. For example, wood looks different from iron, and iron is different from copper, and copper is different from aluminium. But there can be similarities. Suppose iron, copper, and aluminium, these are all metals, and wood is not a metal. So iron, copper, and aluminium are similar, but wood is different. Next is activity 3. Collect small pieces of different materials, paper, cardboard, wood, copper wire, aluminium sheet, chalk. Do any of these appear shiny? Separate the shiny materials into group. So you have to collect small pieces of different material. We take small piece of paper, then we take small pieces of cardboard, then we take small pieces of wood, then we take small pieces of copper wire, and then we take small pieces of aluminium sheet, and then we take small pieces of chalk. Do any of these appear shiny? Separate the shiny materials into a group. So we differentiate the shiny material and other is no shining material. Paper shine, no. Cardboard shine, no. Wood shine, no. Copper wire shine, yes. Aluminium sheet shine, yes. Chalk shine, no. So there are some materials which shine, and there are some material which do not shine. Now observe as the teacher cuts each material into two pieces and look at the freshly cut surface. So what are the teacher doing? They are taking material of paper and cardboard, and then wood, then copper wire, and then aluminium sheet, and then he is taking chalk, and then he cuts every material into the middle and look at its freshly cut surface. What do you notice? Does the freshly cut surface of some of these material appear shining? When we cut all materials in the middle, then this cut surface appears shiny. Include this also in the group of shiny material. When we cut different materials in the middle, if the cutting part looks like shining material, then we put into the category of shiny material. Do you notice that a shine or luster in some material? Cut them anyway as you can. Repeat this in the class with as many materials as possible and make a list of those with and without luster. Instead of cutting, you can rub the surface of material with sandpaper to see if it has luster. This is the material, and we have to cut these material from the middle. And this is the second figure. We are cutting the material into the middle. Do you notice that a shiny or luster in the material and cut them anyway as you can? Repeat this in the class with as many material as possible and make a list of those with and without luster. So this luster is a property. Lusters means shining material. The material which shines are called lustrous material, and the material which does not shine are called non-luster material. Do you notice that a shine or luster in the material? Cut them anyway as you can and repeat this in the class with any material as possible and make a list of those without luster. Instead of cutting, you can rub the surface of material with sandpaper to see if it has luster. So there are two methods to see whether an object has luster or not. Firstly is we cut we cut the material in the middle, and next material is rub the surface of the material with sandpaper and check whether it has shining or not. So what do you mean by lusters? What do you mean by lusters? The material which shines are called lustrous material, and the material which does not shine are called non-lustrous material. So what do you mean by lustrous material? The material which can shine are called lustrous material, and the material which does not shine are called non-lustrous material. So there are two types of material. First is luster and second is non-luster. First is luster. Luster means the material which can shine are called lustrous material, and the material which does not shine are called non-lustrous material. So these are the properties of property. These are the properties of material. And first property is appearance, and then is luster. And how we'll check whether it contains shining or not? Firstly, we cut piece into the middle and then check the cutting part shine or not. If cutting part shine, then it is a lustrous material. If cutting part does not shine, then it is non-lustrous material. And the second method is, then we rub them every material with the sandpaper. Then after rubbing the with the sandpaper, it shine. Then it is a lustrous material, and when does not shine, then it is called non-lustrous material. So there are two types of material. First is lustrous material and second is non-lustrous material. So there are two types of metal, lusters and second is non-lusters. So what do you mean by appearance? Every material looks different from another. Wood different from iron, and iron is different from aluminium, and aluminium is different from copper. So every object looks different from another. So this is the activity 3. We are collecting different materials. Firstly, we take small pieces of paper, and then we take small piece of cardboard, and then we take small piece of wood, copper wire, aluminium sheet, and chalk. And where we check whether it contains shining materials or not. How can we check whether it is shining or not? First method is we remove the outer layer with the sandpaper. Then if it contains shining material, then it is lusters. And if it does not contain shining material, then it is non-lusters. So second method is we cut every material into the middle. If cutting material have shining surface, then it is lusters. And if the cutting part does not contain shining material, then it is non-lusters. So what do we mean by lusters? The material which can shine are called lusters, and the material which does not shine are called non-lusters. So the material which shine are called lusters, and the material which does not shine are called non-lusters. So there are the two types of objects, lustrous objects and non-lustrous objects. The objects which shine are called lustrous object, and the material which does not shine are called non-lustrous object. Material that have luster. And what are the lustrous material? Iron, copper, aluminium, and gold. These are all examples of lustrous material. These are all metals. All metals shine, so they are lustrous material. Some metals often lose their shine and appear dull because of the action of air and moisture on them. Mostly metals have shining surface, but some metal just like copper, they corrode, and when they are exposed to air and moisture on them, then they lose their lustrousness and they become dull. We therefore notice the lusters only on the freshly cut surface. So when this surface become dull, then we check it by cutting the surface. If cutting surface have shining surface, then it is lustrous material. If it does not shine, and then it is called non-lustrous material. When you visit an ironsmith or a workshop, look out the freshly cut surface of metal rods to see if they have lusters. So where we can see the cut surface? In the shop of ironsmith shop or in the workshop, we can see the metal cut surface of metal rods. And then we check whether it contains shining surface or not. And the material which contains shining surface are called lustrous objects, and the material which does not contain surface, then it is called non-lustrous object. So what are the example of lustrous object? Iron, all metals have lustrous objects. And what are the example of non-lustrous object? Wood. Wood does not shine. So this is the example of non-lustrous material. The material which shine are called lustrous object. For example, all metals. And what do you mean by non-lustrous object? The object which does not shine are called non-lustrous object. And what are the example? Wood. Wood is an example of non-lustrous object. And where we can see the cut surface, and we can see the cut surface in the iron smith and or on the workshop, and where we can see the cut surface of metal rods. And we can check that they have lusters or not. So the first property is appearance. Appearance, it contains lustrous or non-lustrous material. And second property is hardness. So what do you mean by hardness? Some materials can be compressed easily and some materials cannot compress easily. And the material which can be compressed easily are called soft material, and the material which cannot be compressed easily are called hard material. For example, cotton. Cotton is a soft and iron is a hard. So cotton is a soft, while iron is a hard. So what is the purpose of cotton and what is the purpose of iron? Cotton surface is soft and iron is hard. Why cotton surface is soft? Why cotton surface is soft and why iron is hard? Because they have property, and because our cotton can be compressed. As we when we compress cotton, then it can be easily compressed. So cotton is a soft material, but when we compress iron, then it cannot be compressed, then it is hard material. So when you press different materials with your hands, some of them may be hard to compress, while others may be easily compressed. How can we check hardness in a given material? Then and other some materials can be compressed easily and other materials cannot be compressed easily. Take a metal key and try to scratch with it, and the surface of piece of wood, aluminium, a piece of stone, a nail or candle or chalk, any other material or object. You can easily scratch some material while some cannot be scratched so easily. So some materials can be scratched or some cannot be easily scratched. Materials which can be compressed or scratched easily are called soft, and some material which are difficult to compress are called hard material. So there are two types of material. First is soft and second is hard. Some material which can be compressed easily are called soft material, and the material which cannot be compressed are called hard materials. So what are the example of hard material and what are the example of soft material? Cotton is a soft while iron is a hard. So the materials which can be compressed easily are called soft material, and the material which cannot be compressed easily are called hard material. In appearance, materials can have different properties like lusters, hardness, and be rough or smooth. can you think of other properties that describe the appearance of material? So what is the second property of the properties of material? Second is hardness. When you press different material with your hands, and it can be hard and some materials can be soft. So the material can be soft or some materials can be hard. So there are so materials. First is soft and second is hard. The material which can be compressed easily are called soft material, and the material which cannot be compressed easily are called hard material. And what are the example of soft material? Cotton. Cotton is an example of soft material, and and the iron is an example of hard material. In appearance, materials can have different properties like luster, hardness, be rough or smooth. Can you think of other properties that describe the appearance of material? So there are so many properties of material. First is lusters, second is hardness, and third is be rough or smooth. And these are all properties of materials. And there are also some properties of material, just like soluble or insoluble, sink or float in the water. So again, I am revising the property. First property is appearance. Appearance means lusters or non-lusters. The material which can shine are called lustrous material, and the material which does not shine are called non-lustrous material. So the material which can shine are called lustrous material, and the material which does not shine are called non-lustrous material. And what are the example of lustrous material and what are the example of non-lustrous material? And how can we check whether it contain lusters or not? All metals have lusters because they have shining surface, and wood does not shine, and so this is no lusters. So how can we check whether it contains shining or not? We can check by the two method. First method is cut the object into the middle and check whether the cutting material shine or not. If the cutting material shine, then it is a lustrous object. If it does not shine, then it is no lustrous object. So these are the lustrous object and no lustrous object. And second method is cut the surface with sandpaper. Cut the surface with rub the surface with sandpaper. When we rub the surface with sandpaper, if the surface shine, then it is lustrous, and if it does not shine, then it does not contain lusters. So there are two types of material, lusters or non-lusters. And next property is hardness. And it is divided into two parts, soft and hard. Some materials can be compressed easily, are called soft materials, and some materials cannot be compressed easily, are called hard material. And what are the example of soft material? Cotton, and this is a soft material. And what are the purpose of what are hard materials? What are the example of hard material? Iron is an example of hard material. So they have some materials are hard and some materials are soft. So this is the second properties of material. And what are the properties of material? First is appearance, means lusters or non-lusters. And second is hardness. Hardness means soft or hard. And so there are two types of objects. Some can be compressed easily and some cannot be compressed easily. The object which can be compressed easily are called soft material, and the which cannot be compressed easily are called hard material. So we can check we can check whether we can check it for different materials, whether it is soft or hard. by the compressing each material. So luster is a property of material. Hardness is a property of material. Rough or smooth is a property of material. In the next lecture, we will study about the property of material, soluble or insoluble. And next property is objects may float or sink in the water. So and next is transparency. We will study this property of the material in the next class. So these are the property of material. Again, I am revising all the question. First question is why we not make tumbler with a piece of cloth. Next question is, what are the material used for making a tumbler? First question is, why we not make tumbler with a piece of cloth? And next is, what are the material used for making making a tumbler? So next question is, why we not use paper material for cooking vessels? And next question is, what are the properties of material? What are the properties of material? Next question is, what is the difference between lustrous and non-lustrous object? And next question is, what are the difference between lustrous and non-lustrous material? And next is, what are the examples of lustrous material and what are the example of non-lustrous material? And next is, when metal is exposed with the air, then it is a lustrous or non-lustrous. When metal is exposed to air, then it become dull, then it become non-lustrous. Because when metal react with air and water, then it corrodes, and then the outer covering of material become very dull and it becomes non-lustrous. So these are the properties of material, and we have to find 5 objects which are lustrous, and we have to find 5 objects which are non-lustrous. And next is, how can we check the material is lustrous or not? So how can we check material is lustrous or not? Next is, what do you mean by hardness? What do you mean by hardness? And it is divided into 2 parts, soft or hard. And this is divided into 2 parts, whether the material can be compressed or not, and whether the materials are difficult to compress. And what is the difference between soft and hard materials? And what are the examples of soft and hard materials? So these are the properties of material. And what are another properties of material? Soluble or insoluble, transparency, objects may float or sink in the water. These are all properties of material. So what are properties of material? First is appearance, second is hardness, third is soluble or insoluble, fourth is transparency, fifth is object may float or sink in the water. So these are all properties of material. So these are all properties of material. So today we'll study about the hardness property of the material and appearance property of the material. In the next lecture, we will study about the soluble or insoluble property of the material. So any query regarding this chapter? Any query regarding this chapter? Any query regarding this chapter?